Hi, welcome to another episode of Dr. Miss Podcast. What I want to talk about in this episode is the one skill I think all doctors, regardless of what specialty you're from, regardless of what grade you are, that you should be investing, time into. And that's communication skills. Now, I'm not saying that the other skills are skills you should ignore, but I believe that having good communication skills will help your job, help your career on so many levels. And I wanted to make this episode to sort of highlight why I believe that and something just food for thought, really. Now, some of you listening might have gone to certain medical schools where there's a reputation or you get this criticism for some people. I know I did, having graduated from, a university in London. And I won't mention their name in case somehow this sort of comes back onto me. But you'll get consultants saying, oh, you've gone to that medical school, you don't really know real science. You know how to communicate, you're really good communicators. It's sort of a backhand remark. But let's be honest, I think, we forget or we don't acknowledge how important it is to have good communication skills. We are academic people, we're scientists. What differs us, why do you want to become a doctor? If you go back right to that medical school interview, and why not a scientist? Because you love science, that's what you said. It's because we love human interaction, we like to communicate, we like to be with our patients. And that's why you've gone down this road of being a doctor of medicine. And yet, everything we're trained to do, everything that we focus on in our career is very academic. Think about all the courses you've gone on to recently. They're all academic, aren't they? Whether they're scanning, learning a particular type of skill, being able to show that you're competent in a particular field so that you can apply for your subspecialty or be very good at a particular area of medicine. But how many of us go to communication school courses? Now, some of you might think, well, I did a lot of that in medical school, so I'm really good at doing these things. And that might be true if you've been trained through the UK system. But even that, I think I come across SHOs or people of all various levels where, despite that, they're not really good at communicating. And I meet people who have studied in systems outside the UK and they struggle at work, whether that be with conversations with patients within their own team. They have issues with communication or getting their point across. Or there's conflict or whatever a problem may be. Usually, if you really analyze these problems, it all comes down to communication skills. And yet we don't go on these courses. Even for the clinical exams, whenever I've talked to people and said, how are you preparing for your comm skills? They're like, oh, no, that's okay. That's not worth that many stations, that many marks. I'm going to focus on all the academic stuff. There is no emphasis of being a good communicator. And I think people just completely, either they dismiss it, they undermine it. But being a good communicator is so important. Let me give you another example. I've come across people that will say, oh, but I'm so much better than this person, yet they get the job or they get more opportunities. And when you analyse it, maybe from an academic point of view, they're not as strong as you, but they've managed to talk their way into getting what they need. It all comes down to good communication skills. And it isn't, and I want to make this clear, good communication skills doesn't mean the ability to speak English. And I think that's a complete misconception, especially when I'm talking to people that have trained from abroad. Communication skill isn't just the verbal side of it, but it's also the body language. It's also thinking about the timing of how you say stuff. So you're breaking bad news. Maybe there's a conflict, and you're trying to, bring things down to a cooler environment. Maybe you're trying to manage expectations from a parent, or there's a breakdown of communication. Again, communication. And you're trying to manage that problem as a registrar, where people are not very happy. Maybe there's problems amongst the SHOs. Maybe there's problems amongst the registrars. Having the ability to communicate, not speak English, communicate, whether that's saying the right thing at the right time, in the right way, listening rather than talking, the way your body language is during the whole interaction, all of these things are really important. And I think this is where we go wrong. We do not invest time. So if you do think about the way you communicate, and you do think about actually how can I do better, what are the benefits? Well, you'd be a better teacher, because a lot of teaching is actually being a showman, being able to communicate, being able to explain complex things in a very simple way, being able to talk to a parent who's either angry or anxious, who doesn't really want to go home because they're worried, being able to communicate with them, being able to instill confidence, being able to manage expectation. All of these things are, the ability to communicate. And I think we focus so much on the academic ability, the academic skill, which of course, absolutely really important, especially when you're trying to get to a certain point in your career, definitely. But you really got to think about communication skills. So how would I advise you to learn communication skills? Courses are good. I think courses are a point where you can learn sort of models of communicating, but again, you don't want to make it too technical. But I think it's a good starting point, especially if you are at a point where your communication skills are very poor. I think then that's a good place to start. If you've got relatively good communication skills and you want to refine them, then other things may help. Whether that's being more conscientious about communication that's happening to your day-to-day thing. Things that I've learned, people will sometimes compliment me saying, you're really good with that parent, or you're very good at, sort of managing people, and you've got a group of angry registrars and you're trying to sort of negotiate. Where have I learned that from? Some of that is just come from experience, from watching other people do it. So if you're an SHO and you're working up the rank, you're probably not going to be involved too much in many of these conversations, but you need to start watching your seniors. How do they talk? How do they manage those situations? And please don't interrupt. I get sometimes when you're dealing with very, a heated sort of conversation, and you get someone junior just comes out of nowhere, just sort of, starts talking. Probably best to just watch and see what's going on. But do watch, do think about, what would I have done? What would I have said? What did this person do? Be conscientious about what's happening and learn from that. That's the whole point of role models. That's what a role model is to look at what someone's doing and try to mimic that behavior or take the positives from that behavior and utilize it for yourself. So just your interactions, see how that goes. Ask the questions, ask the seniors, how do they manage certain situations. I asked that when I was a lot junior, and consultants would say in handovers, you need to say this to the parent. And I'll say, well, actually, you know what? Parents will say this in return or get really annoyed. Or, if you're in a supervisor meeting, say, look, I've tried to address it, but these are the problems I'm facing. Think about the solutions, because they've probably gone through a lot of situations in all different angles. Take away something from that. So I think the fact that you're being conscientious to the way you communicate, the way you come across, will always put you in a better position than you were before. And it'd be a good way to figure out, how you can get better. You may not necessarily need to go to a course, but actually, why not? There's a load of free courses that occur in most hospitals if you look for them. breaking bad news, dealing with conflict. And dealing with conflict isn't purely a, non-communication or a purely communication. There are other things involved, of course, but most things will involve communication skills at some level. So I think if you really take the time to be a good communicator, it will benefit you at your day-to-day work, both within staff and within patients and children and patients' families. It's also going to help you with your teaching. It will help with your leadership, your management skills. It'll help with you being able to network well, and it will help you. So there's multiple levels where if you can communicate well, and you take the time to think about how you do communicate. So think of it this way: if you're someone that's always perceived wrongly, or you always seem to be in situations where people just don't seem to see your side of the conversation, and these are your sort of trainees in need. Again, it's about communication skills. So you avoid being in those situations if you just think about, again, not how you speak English. That's what I've got to make very clear to you. Communication skills is not how you speak English, but it's the way you seem to perceive what's being said to you, how you react to things, the body language you sort of display, all of these things. Even your written communication, it's still communication. So all of these things, again, is communication skills. And I think it's really important to develop that skill, because it's going to make you look like a very good role model, and it's something that people would want to, emulate. So again, I think those are all things really important to do. I just thought for this particular episode, I just wanted to sort of put that across to you, that it is something that I recommend that you do. I think it's something that's really important. And do start thinking about it, because it's going to have a benefit a long way away. So, yeah, very short episode, but I think I come across with a very important message. I hope that you can think about that and think, well, actually, maybe I do have a point. And again, you may be someone who's already very good at communication skills, or have never really, had problems in those situations, and that's fine. This may not be the message for you, but if you are someone who is struggling to come across, and that might be just because you're an introvert and you just find it very difficult to put your point across. But equally, I think even if you are an introvert, doesn't mean you can't communicate. So again, I think your personality being an extrovert makes it easier to be a good communicator. But an extrovert could also end up in saying the wrong thing and being perceived the wrong way. And an introvert could be, on the other side of the scale. So I think, again, personalities do come into it. I should have said that a bit earlier on, but I'll say that now. But again, it's about homing in and focusing those skill sets. So I hope you found this useful. And as always, subscribe, and do check out, the website MRCPC Specialty Courses. I will eventually be doing communication skill courses for both advanced sort of scenarios, but also for people that have come from abroad, and hopefully you will see the benefit of being able to communicate really well. Anyway, till next time, take care.